we go to item number 15, which is a text amendment relating to the definition of agriculture. If anyone would like to speak to this item, this would be the time to come to the podium.
I have lived in places where we could have chickens, and they were never a problem, and the people that have them enjoy them, and it's never an issue. Same thing with raising bees for honey.
I've got a few things to say here, but first I wanted to respond to the idea that chickens would be a noise violation. We allow dogs. I don't know if you've grown up around dogs or around chickens. We allow dogs. They're much louder than chickens, so let's not pretend that's actually an issue.
In my position as agriculture teacher at the Clarke Middle School, I've gotten the opportunity to observe a lot of educational benefits through kids being able to be in contact with chickens. So they've been allowed to make connections with our state's economy and our history and that sort of thing, but in a personal way. But then also I've seen them develop a sense of care and sense of responsibility and a sense of community as well. And I feel like this could be carried over in a residential way and responsible way so that youth could grow up being more self-sufficient.
So I was going to use this time to implore you to legalize chickens and bees. I was going to list out all of the reasons that legalizing chickens and bees would benefit Athens, that they're good for the environment, they build communities, they're educational, they increase access to food and food security, and on and on. But instead, I actually really want to take time to express my frustration and disappointment at the way that the mayor and some commissioners are dealing with this issue. I can't even believe that this is an issue. Keeping backyard chickens should not be an issue. There are so many other towns and cities across the U.S. that have not just amended their zoning codes to allow chickens and bees, but they have passed broad legislation that supports and encourages urban agriculture.
So I'd like to be explicit about what we're all, well, most of us are here asking for today, which is that we want you to deny the current text amendment because we want an urban agriculture ordinance with chickens and bees in it. If you accept the text as it currently is, even with the intention that it would come back and we'd eventually have chickens and bees, the urgency for this goes away, and we fall back into the same vortex of inaction in which we spent the last 6 years.
And I think this is exactly the kind of motion forward that brings families to town and has families buy homes and raise their children here. I mean, this is good for the community to make this kind of change. And so I have to say, I'm even known kind of as the chicken lady. And a lot of people confess to me that they have chickens, and I have never, ever ratted anyone out. And I do not want to. What I want is it to be okay for them to do what they do at their home. We are not talking really about agriculture. We're talking about personal use on your land, on your home. Since the rule has been vulnerable, but recently there's been pressure on it, I don't want to see a fix. We have been talking about this too long for a fix. We are in it for the long haul. For 6 years, I have talked to many of you behind the rail about this. I would ask you to do this correctly and to come back with something that's whole and comprehensive and represents what we want for the good of Athens. I am not one that thinks that we need more rules. We have a lot of rules. So if I'm going to ask for one, I really want it to be a good one. The fix is not what we want. We want urban agriculture for real. And now is the time. Now is the opportunity.
I just couldn't miss this opportunity. We're talking about birds and bees, and what's the problem here? Thank you.
To use the definition section of agriculture to prohibit that doesn't make a lot of sense when you think about it, right? I mean, it makes a lot of sense to grant authority to big agricultural zones, but it doesn't make sense to restrict land use in small residential areas. So I would just urge that the commission rethink this approach and also consider permitting chickens and allowing the existing legal regime of nuisance law and animal cruelty legislation to do what it's supposed to do. Thank you.
This opportunity has come to you, Not because the commission requested it, and not because the staff recommended it, and not because the attorney said that this was unenforceable and needed to be fixed. This opportunity has come to you because a citizen stood up against a law that he felt was unjust and forced this to happen. And I would say, don't lose that opportunity by approving this tonight. Don't take that for granted that happened. It was courageous for him to do that. People have not done that in the 6 years since. They haven't stood up to do it. And so don't lose this opportunity.
I also will urge the commission to vote against this obviously flawed legislation. I'm not sure why we would want to vote for what we know is flawed policy. Why would we openly want to vote for it knowing it's flawed and knowing we're going to have to fix it later? Let's make sure we vote for policy that is correctly written and addresses the situation that it's supposed to address.
Okay, we're coming behind the rail.
I would like to propose that we deny this text amendment and ask planning to come back to us with a rewritten definition of agriculture that allows for the keeping of chickens and bees and ornamental fish ponds. I didn't realize that if you throw a few goldfish into your rain barrel, you're suddenly breaking the law. That they come back to us by our June meeting, which is June 2nd, 2015, with a newly defined definition of agriculture and a regulatory ordinance.
I'll second that.
Have a motion.
I'll second that.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Roll call, Ms. Spratt. Ordinance, yes, sir.
I'd like to make a substitute motion. So my substitute motion will require staff to formulate a proposed ordinance which will be subject to a public hearing at the April 2nd Planning Commission meeting and presented to us at our May agenda planning meeting, and it requires an urban agriculture ordinance be presented to us on our June 2nd voting meeting. This process can move forward at this rate because there are many working model ordinances from which to draw, and these dates were suggested after careful consideration by Manager Reddish. The option requires that the urban agricultural ordinance include regulations for the keeping of chickens and bees in residential districts and perhaps other zoning districts that do not currently allow agriculture. By adopting the proposed definition of agriculture, which is what my option entails, my option will prevent unintended consequences of allowing urban agriculture without the benefit of regulations. These regulations are needed to protect the welfare of the chickens and the bees and the quality of life of neighbors.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I don't want to repeat all the good comments and that were made at the podium. They cover much better what I was going to try to summarize. But in that, I want to say that with all due respect to the substitute motion, it's limited to beekeeping and raising chickens, and the fish ponds are another very important element that I think needs to be addressed. And by sending it back to the planning department with the definition, that both those can be done accurately together. And we've also heard about part of the crop part is not exactly covering everything agriculture-wise for the what is grown in a yard versus what's in the yard. So again, I think with all due respect to the substitute motion, I will not be supporting it.
Do a roll call, Ms. Bratton.
This is on the motion, right?
It's on the
It's on the substitute motion.
Neesmith?
Yes.
Hamby?
Yes.
Vale?
Yes.
Dickerson?
Yes.
Sims?
Yes.
Gertz?
Yes.
Link?
Yes.
Wright?
No.
Bailey?
Yes.
8 yes, 1 no.